we need to understand where our baseline is. We need to understand what it feels like to take care of ourselves. So for me is if I don't work out for 2 days, something just doesn't feel right. And then I'm not really myself.
Guest today, Dr. Deanna Rose. Jenny, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you guys connected?
Hi, Dr. Deanna Rose. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Jenny and Tony.
Do you prefer Dr. Deanna, Dr. Rose, Deanna, Dr. D?
I prefer anything you want to call me. You can drop the doctor. It really is not that big of a deal at all.
I love that. It's not a big deal.
You can call me
Deanna.
D, anything
D?
you want. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay, it's going to roll it off the tongue. This naturally come out during the podcast session here. Deanna. We met through Pursuit 365, and I promoted this book back on our feed in March when it came out on Amazon. It was one of the best-selling books. And you were on day 17, which is page 17 of Pursuit 365. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and the background of yourself, and to our listeners, why it's so important what you do.
So every time I talk to people, they're like, tell me a little bit about you. And I really honestly never know where to start. I guess I'll just start with what I do. So what I really focus on is peak performance. I focus on the reason why I started my company. Let's go there. So my company's name is Wēllth by Deanna Rose. And the reason why I call it Wēllth, Wellth, is because I want people to feel that their health is more important than anything in life, because without health, without our body, without a sound mind, without taking care of ourselves, we really have nothing. And I find a lot of people, as they get older, as they get more established, they start realizing that actually my health is way more important than all my possessions, all the fame, all the money, all the, superficial appearance that I have. And none of that matter if internally I don't feel good, whether that's physically, whether that's mentally. So, and also the reason why I called it Wēllth is also because I want people to live in a state of abundance. I want people to feel abundant all the time, for them to feel like they're able to tap into that state of abundance and happiness and joy at any point in their day, in their life, and feel like they have access to it whenever they want to. And that's why I started it. And how I started my career was I always wanted to do something in mental health. And I have a lot of family members with mental health issues. And I really, a funny story, I told my mom when I was really, really young, and I told her I really want to be a neurosurgeon. And she was like, oh, why don't you just be a butcher? Less work, less education. It's just really funny to me. And I keep thinking about that story these days, especially as I work with people, because it's really interesting to see some people, they're able to continue to strive towards that next level. They want to get better. They want to achieve more. Versus there are other people who are very content with where they are. So it's really interesting to see the contrast between the two types of people. So I'm from Vancouver. So I was working for the BC Ministry of Children and Family Development as a counselor for about 2 years. And what I realized was that the mental health facilities are really missing the physical piece. So they're not really taking care of people's nutrition. They're not taking care of people's physical health. And I've worked with patients with HIV. I've worked with patients with autism, with mental health disorders, addiction, all these different things. And they're so focused on drugs and so focused on talk therapy, they're not really taking care of the other aspects of things, which is why I went back to school for naturopathic medicine. And funny enough, when I went back to school, I realized that they didn't really care about the mental health aspect of things. So what I ended up doing is combining the two, and also I also added spirituality into my business as well. So basically, the mind, the body, and the soul is what makes up Wēllth by Deanna Rose.
Fantastic.
First of all, yeah, I really appreciate you taking on mental health. It's so broad and so much to cover, and that's probably why the budget, there's not much of an allocation to that with the Ministry of Health, as you mentioned. So I really appreciate you touching on this topic, because it is very sensitive, a stigma to talk about, and also. I also feel like, us being in the industry that we're in real estate, we encounter this like really undefined schedule requiring not a lot of downtime, but mainly like a very loose schedule. So unless you're really great at time blocking, which I'm not great at, where we don't have like a set eating schedule, we don't have a set self-care schedule, we're constantly on this high level of stress on like time demand. We often encounter like financial stress, fatigue, burnout. And so that's one thing I really want to touch on is burnout in one of our topics today. But I want to maybe touch on this mental health. It just being 1 month, it should be a day-to-day thing that we need to talk about and nourish, right?
Most definitely. Most definitely. And I totally agree it's not an area where, and I don't say this from a very judgmental place at all, but it's just such an area that's underserved. And because, to be frank, big companies don't make money from it. They don't make money from the homeless people who are addicted to drugs. They don't make money from people who are suffering from mental health issues. So it's very underserved. And of course, everyone has, myself included, everyone has mental health issues. And because we are suppressing so much, because we need to suppress. And a lot of us don't even consciously suppress, but we need to suppress in order for us to continue to move on to our day-to-day life.
Deanna, you said something really important about health and nutrition, and the smallest level, I guess, and easiest one possibly for some people to stay on top of every day. So wondering, I guess, a little bit more about that. Can you tell us a little bit more about taking care of health on a simple nutrition level, or how you would recommend for your peak performers? And not even a peak performer, just anybody who's wanting to prioritize their health, what building blocks or blueprint they should put into place to make sure that they're taking care of themselves on a nutritional level.
Most definitely. That's so important. So nutrition is one of those things that, if you think about it, we drink water every day, we breathe in oxygen, and the other thing we continuously to put into our body is food. And I'm not a fan of diets. I don't think they work. I never recommend people to go on diets. And what they say is good for you is not necessarily good for you. Everyone's different. Everybody's genetic makeup and everybody's experiences and epigenetics, and also, basically nature and nurture. Everyone's going through different experiences, and how we digest things, our gut microbiome, our stress level, inflammation level, everyone's different. So general rule of thumb, what I like to recommend to people is a whole food diet. So fresh foods from the earth, because we're organic beings. We are living, breathing human beings, which means we should be eating living things, which means tons of vegetables, tons of fruits, nothing, dried, nothing canned. sometimes canned is unavoidable, but just try to minimize it as much as you can. And sometimes, people love getting frozen just for, as Jenny mentioned earlier, is you guys are busy, of course. So things like frozen foods are fine, but think about, getting things that are flash frozen, like, vegetables and fruits like that. But try to really focus on fresh things. Think about, when you eat something that's processed, it really makes you feel sluggish, makes you feel really tired, brain foggy, and all these different symptoms is because our body doesn't really know what to do about it. And the inflammatory process is essentially the body putting on guard, saying, we don't know what this is, but let's fight it. And over time, that energy that you could be using to, let's say, take care of your clients and make your business grow, you're spending half that energy fighting off the food that you just put into your body. So really focus on in-season foods as well, because the reason why you want to focus on in-season within your region is because those foods are often contain the highest nutrients within them, especially when it comes to vegetables and fruits. For something that's, let's say, shipped in from, let's say in Canada, we're in the winter, something, let's say, shipped in from Peru, they have to harvest it before it's completely ripe, get it shipped over, and they spray on a bunch of chemicals to make it look good and for it to be able to last. So we don't get as much nutrient content. And what we want to do, is, I'm sure you guys are always thinking about this, is you want to get your money's worth. You want to make sure that we maximize our resources, which means that if you eat something with your calories, with your nutrition, you want to get as much nutrients as possible from whatever you eat and put into your body.
So in your opinion, if we're just talking about nutrition and diet to, I guess, maintain and also reset health, does organic foods make a difference or just local?
I would say both. And I understand that, not a lot of people can afford organic, and also organic is not available to a lot of people either. So rule of thumb, which I usually tell people, is if you're getting something that is you're going to eat, so for example, apples or kale or, the leafy greens that have a lot of surface area, you want to get organic because they have the most potential to absorb whatever chemicals and whatever pollutants into the leaves, into the skin. But, if you have to pick and choose something like an orange, for example, you don't have to eat the skin. I know some people eat the skin. I don't know how they do it, but if something that you can just toss the skin out, it's a lot. Feel free to grab something that's non-organic. But usually, rule of thumb, if you're eating the leaf, try to get organic, and if you're eating the skin, try to get organic.
So let's talk about what clients look for when they see you, because you're transforming their lifestyle, their nutritional balanced diet, their energy, you're optimizing their energy, digestion, movement. You're even helping them with their trauma patterns, peak performance strategies. So tell me maybe like a situation where you've helped a client transform their life from constantly failing and maybe constantly just having not a really good habits into a success story.
I would say a typical story would be, the typical North American humans who are so such overachievers, always looking to do more and get more done, and end up being really tired and feeling burnt out, like you mentioned before, and just feeling defeated overall. And so I had a client who, when she first came to me, she, her sleep wasn't refreshed. She would wake up in the morning, dragging herself out of bed. Not because she hated what she does, but her job, but it's because her sleep was really low quality. I call it sleep efficacy. It doesn't really matter how long you sleep, it's the quality of your sleep that matters. And she would sleep, for sometimes 9 hours, and she'd wake up exhausted. And usually by 10 o'clock in the morning, she's dead. And she's like, I'm just dragging myself through the day. I know I have to get a lot of stuff done, but I have to drag myself through it. Otherwise, I won't be able to get anything done at all. So usually by 5 p.m., which is when she's supposed to finish work, she doesn't get enough done. So oftentimes her work hours go till 8 p.m. at night. And then by then she's exhausted. She doesn't have the energy to cook dinner. She doesn't have energy to either work out or go for a walk even. And she just sits on the couch and veg. So, I feel like that's your typical almost North American 9 to 5, unfortunately. And so what we did was, we fixed up her nutrition. We made sure that she got on good habits. And that's something that I really emphasize with people. So with the 3 components that I talk to people about when it comes to peak performance is mental clarity and automatization and also intrinsic drive. So when you have habits that come natural to you, so for example, if you're on your phone scrolling through, let's say Instagram or something at 11 o'clock when you should be sleeping, if you build a good habit, then by 11 o'clock, you'd be putting your phone in airplane mode, putting it away and going to sleep. That's now a habit, is rather than, it's now, well, I can put my phone away or I can just scroll for 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes often turns into an hour. So when habits are built in, just like we know, when we go into a dark room, we know to turn on the light. So it becomes automatic and we don't even have to think about it. And so habits is what we did, nutrition, and of course, exercise, and also just changing her mindset, because a lot of people, and I'm not generalizing when I say this, is as humans, modern day humans, we all feel we're not worthy, unfortunately. We all have underlying self-worth issues. So we feel like the more we do, the better it will get, the more worthy you will feel. But it is not true at all. So just really reversing that thought pattern and relearn a lot of the things that we were essentially taught and programmed into our brain. So
you mentioned nutrition and habits, creating these habits for a healthier future. Mm-hmm. What kinds of things then would you recommend spiritually then, or because you're integrating a lot of the energetic and the worthiness, let's say, for example, right, into a person's mindset so that they can experience joy and achieve whatever it, maybe not achieve, complete whatever it is that's important to them to complete. Mm-hmm. So what ways, I guess, do you guys, I guess the question is, take us through a process where you've helped a client connect with that.
So you're asking the process where I essentially take them from where they are to where they want to be. And
for the unworthiness portion of the mindset, right? Because if somebody's feeling unworthy, you're basically living in the lower emotion space. So how does one then, in order to combat that, so you're eating well then, let's say, for example, and then you're in those lower emotions possibly still of not having what it is that you want. How does somebody overcome that?
So when it comes to nutrition, because nutrition and our body we're constantly, as humans, we're an entire system. When one thing's change, everything else changes. So as I mentioned before, if you eat, processed food, we tend to feel crappy. We tend to have brain fog. It's not a regional thing. It's not like it goes into the stomach, we poop it out. It's very much, what we eat gets basically flooded into the bloodstream and gets carried everywhere. So once a person starts eating better, they're going to feel better. So the process that I usually take people through, this is physical, emotional, and spiritual, is a process where is a 4-step process essentially, is shift, clarity, realignment, and optimization. So shift is essentially we correct the physical stuff. So getting people moving, releasing all the good hormones, making them feel good from the inside, getting them to eat a really whole food rich, fresh food diet. So they feel really good about themselves. They have more energy, less brain fog. So they have that clarity coming to them. Because a lot of the times what I find, from working in the mental health field is we're basically going into a mud puddle and trying to stir up more dirt up onto the surface without, clearing things up. By fixing the physical, we're getting to the root cause at the same time as, we are trying to clear up the pond, essentially, if that makes sense. So I usually take through, fix the physical first so they see the immediate results. They feel the immediate change within the body and within their brain functioning as well. And then we take them through, I wouldn't even call them therapy, but more of a guided process where they start to realize their strength, their vulnerabilities, their authenticity, their core values, who they are as an individual, and start to understand some of the patterns that they were taught as children, as even the way that we come out of our mothers, whether that's a vaginal birth or is from a C-section, it makes a huge difference in how people perceive the world, right? So it's a very, from birth till the present day and where they want to be in the future, because not everybody wants to be in the same place, and really try to take them onto a path where they are starting to build that person they want to be in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now.
So are most of your clients online based then? You're doing like one-on-one chats through Zoom or virtual conference?
Yeah, so they're all of them are virtual, and I was mostly taking one-on-one clients, but I realized that I was going through a stage of burnout because I get too emotionally invested in people's transformations, and I don't think it's a bad thing, but it's just something that I need to work on when it comes to holding my own energy. And so what I ended up doing was, and I'm currently actually transitioning, is shifting to a membership model where I provide people with the information. And of course, they have access to me, but it's just a lot less intense. I think that
more time efficient probably for you, especially if you're walking them through components of a similar program. And then if they have access to you, I guess you can taper it to however you need to, right, to customize.
Exactly, totally. And not everybody needs that sort of, intense one-on-one attention. Some people do really well with valuable information. They're able to take it and implement. There are other people who need a little bit more guidance, and everyone's needs are very different. So most definitely shifting over to more of a membership model. And also I don't want to just limit my service to one-on-one, because I can only serve so many people, versus more of a larger scale. I'm able to reach more people and help more people feel like themselves and do better in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very entrepreneurial of you to think that way on the subscription basis, but also appreciate the honesty as well, because we all have just maximum bandwidths that we really hit the ceiling of, and which is a great segue into a really great topic that you came up with: how to become unfuckable. It's really hard for me to
unfuckable.
Unfuckable
with as an entrepreneur. I don't know if we're allowed to say that
so
word.
Good.
So I don't know, but you could say it. I don't swear. But
I do.
So you say.
This energetic alignment where you're doing things that perhaps takes a huge toll on you. It's energy sucking. So you've obviously, seems like you've experienced this yourself. And I find that I had that experience around, I'd say about 8 years ago. And that's why I started forming this team that I manage and lead at the moment. So I would say, like a lot of entrepreneurs and leaders experience this. So take us through at what point should we identify this before we even hit this like ceiling?
Mm-hmm. That's a really great question. I would say, it's something that we're constantly working on. It's something that we need to continuously build as a foundation for ourselves. And that state is not just mental, it's spiritual, like you mentioned, and also physical. Because, once one thing's out of alignment, is a butterfly effect, is a ripple effect, it affects everything else. So in order for us to feel really solid and feel really good about ourselves, we need to understand where our baseline is. We need to understand what it feels like to take care of ourselves. So for me, is if I don't work out for 2 days, something just doesn't feel right. And then I'm not really myself, and I might get cranky. I might, be, not really pleasant, or, if I don't eat healthy, or if I don't eat good, I can feel, the change. So that's more on the physical side of things. And when it comes to more of the mental and spiritual side of things, is we all know what it feels good, or how it feels when it feels good. We all know, how we want to feel, but we often don't really do what it takes to feel good, if that makes sense. So just to give you an example, is we think we want, the material things, especially as, like North American women. It's kind of sad to say, is we're very materialistic, myself included. Mm-hmm. And we love, shiny new things. We love these things that we see other people have, and we're like, oh, I really want that. It's not really the thing we want, it's the feeling we want. Is the feeling of having whatever it is that we have. So is understanding what feeling do you want. And actually what I do every single morning is, let's say today I want to manifest, whatever I want to manifest today. And this is something that I do every single morning. And by manifesting that thing, what feelings am I attracting? What feelings am I trying to chase here? So I usually would outline 3 or 4 feelings. So they're usually the same feelings: alignment, momentum, love, and connection. They're usually the 4 that I usually put out. And so what are some of the things I can do to have those feelings? So I love working out. I love eating healthy. I love to meditate. I love to, do these different things. So, and everyone listening, and for you too as well, is you can always have this reservoir, this list that you can go to for you to feel good. So that's one resource that you can do as a reactionary type of tool. But to go back to your question, sorry, I tend to give long-winded answers if you haven't noticed. So to go back to your question, to become unfuckwithable is, you want to be solid. You want to be someone who's standing in a river. When a current comes, you're like, you can't shake me. I'm here, I'm solid, my toes are digged in, versus someone who's like, oh, I'm just going to go with the current. Only dead fish go with currents. Live fish, they swim against, they swim however they want to swim. So part of that is showing up authentically. Part of that is showing up who you are. Because if we're not showing up authentically, then that means there's certain shame, guilt, vulnerabilities we're trying to hide. And when we have things to hide, we're very fuckwithable. Someone's like, hey, I know you're not comfortable with your hair. And then you're like, oh, what's wrong with my hair? But when you're like, I don't give a shit. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on your show.
You can swear.
Sweet. Okay. But you become very vulnerable, and people can come and start poking you left and right and center, versus, when you are able to deal with your own past, your own shit that you're dealing with. Authenticity is something that we continuously working on. We, of course, all of us have, things that we're fearful of, things that we feel vulnerable about. We have our weaknesses. But part of that is the self-work that we do on an ongoing basis, is understanding what are these weaknesses, what are these vulnerabilities, what are the shames that or shameful feelings I'm trying to hide, and basically picking them out. And by you picking it out yourself, other people can't pick it out for you. So you can lay it on the table and say, here we are, go at it. And it's not going to do anything.
It reminds me of the book I read, it's Subtle Art of
Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah.
You're not going to say it, right?
I was going to say F. But I feel like your title, How to Become
Fuck with them.
as an entrepreneur, would be a fantastic book. It'll be like a 2.0 version, but your in your words, you have such great energy on the show that I'm finding. I'm feeling it. So let's talk about stress, because I always say stress, I feel great when I have stress on me. I get motivated. I'm a procrastinator, so I get the work done. And in your feed, which I so appreciate because you do great reels, you talk about survival stress and shifting it to energetic stress. So a lot of us entrepreneurs and realtors, we deal with stress, but we don't realize that we're in this like cloud of stress. But we just deal with it because everything's time sensitive, everything is on demand. And let's talk about that, because I really feel like
I experienced the same thing.
Yeah. So I wanted to, but my specific question is, what's that sweet spot that we know we've kind of know what our limits are, where we're not in survival mode, but then we're in optimal performance?
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great question. And you definitely hit the nail on the head with the procrastination and feeling like is a driving factor, because you know what? Stress is actually the best and the biggest nootropic for humans. So nootropic is essentially is a cognitive, it's a substance that supports your cognitive functioning, essentially. So you can get it in supplement form, or you can get it in stress form, which sounds like that's exactly what you get. So obviously, stress, as you mentioned, is energetic stress, is not survival stress. And how we shift from energetic over to survival stress is short-term versus medium to long-term, as you probably have read in the post. So with energetic stress, a lot of us, feel really driven, and I'm a procrastinator myself, and I don't know how I survived med school, but I did. And, it's always super last minute, but it's like, you just feel so good. You feel so concentrated and focused. And then when you get it done, you're like, oh, this feels amazing. I should do this again next time. Or you might tell yourself, let's not do this again, but then you do it again.
I feel like I deliver my best work on like a deadline.
Same.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am, because it's a negative pattern, because then for me personally, I get almost that it's right before I get burnt out.
Right. So usually one thing that actually, let me just backtrack really quickly, is how you can tell that you're transitioning from energetic over to survival is when you're losing sleep. We can no longer control your sleep. When you're, eyes open at night, given that you've had a good track record with your sleep quality and having an easier time falling asleep, when you start, laying in bed at night, having your eyes open, you're like, oh, just get to sleep already, having that insomnia that you can't control. That's when you're transitioning over to survival stress. And when you're waking up in the middle of the night, eyes wide open, and you're like, I don't know why I'm awake right now. I can't get back to sleep. That's survival stress right there. So essentially, it's your body saying there's danger somewhere, whether that's imminent, whether that's, coming. I need to be on guard to make sure that I'm okay. So that's essentially what survival stress is. And that's what a lot of people actually are going through in our society, unfortunately. So usually 3 things that I recommend, to people is be preventative, as what Tony mentioned, is she's like, I want to shift it over to more of that energetic stress, but not too much to the point where it's pushing me over the limit. What you can start doing then is, start building your habits. What I mentioned before is, building habits. Make things automatic. Make things that are, come to you easy. So today, let's say these are the things that I need to do to take care of myself. For example, I'm assigning you a bunch of things that make you feel good. I need to take a bath once a week. I need to spend time with my kids, but not too much time with my kids. I need to make sure that I go for a walk every single day. So these are the targets I need to hit in order for me to feel good. So now build these habits into your day. And of course, with habits, it comes, with things like mastery, with a lot of other components to it as well, is what makes you feel good and what comes easy to you. And then another part, of course, is mental clarity. Mental clarity comes in three folds. If you're someone who's, feeling really tired, brain fogged, and not digesting properly, not going to the bathroom to allow your body to detox on a regular basis, you're going to burn out. You're going to go into survival stress much, much easier than someone whose body is able to deal with the stress. So we all have a baseline in stress, and that baseline can be shifted over time. We can actually teach yourself to take on more stress and be able to take on more stress rather than going into survival stress, but stay in energetic stress. And that baseline, we can teach ourselves and continue to condition ourselves to take it higher and higher and higher. But of course, it goes in increments. So physically, you got to take care of yourself. Mentally, you got to take care of yourself. And also the last component is the environmental factors. If you're, for example, if you're in toxic relationships, that is very draining. That's extra work for your mind, extra work for your body, whether that's, family, relationships with your partner or friends or, whoever it is. It's energy sucking. Everything is about energy in life, whether, we admit it or not. Some people are energy vampires. Get them away from us. And things like, household supplies or personal care things. So those are the things that, we really need to think about and take those into consideration as well when it comes to inflammation, because the more inflamed we are, the less stress we can take, the lower our threshold is when it comes to shifting over to that survival stress. And also one more thing I ask people to think about is create more so you can react less. So when you're creating with, I know a lot of realtors, but I don't actually know what your day-to-day life looks like, unfortunately. So you can tell me this, if this is something that's, how you can build this into your profession is for people to create, for us to create is, writing something, building something, whether physical or on the computer, do something for the clients or, whatever it is that's coming from us in the sense of creation. Reaction is scrolling Instagram, social media, listening to other people, gossiping, watching the news, basically things that we're taking in. So when you create more, you're allowing the energy to flow versus when you're only taking it in, there's no outflow, which means things get stuck within us, which means, especially with social media, people get really stressed out because then they have comparisonitis and they get really frustrated with their own life. So that's something that I really, really encourage people to do as well.
Yeah, I would say that the comparison, as I was going to mention before you brought that up, is that's probably one of the most toxic things I find about social media is people posting, how many deals they've done, how much money they've made, the next best car that they bought, the next best house that they just purchased. And it ends up adding a lot of stress and questioning self-worthiness. From there, you cover a lot. You cover so much: nutrition, energy, mindset.
Because it's all related.
Sports related. It is all related. Eating habits. Let's talk about some of your programs that you offer because I want to make sure some of our listeners can sign up with you and use some of your services. Ultimate Wēllth in 21 Days. Wēllth, Wellth, Roadmap to Peak Performance. 14-day Wēllth Catalyst challenge, Better Than Yesterday Academy. WEL. And you do one-on-one coaching.
Like
so I know that's a lot of programs, but what should someone like ourselves, like our listeners, be signing up for? Do you have some that are kind of mastermind sessions where they can kind of like test to see if it's right for them before they kind of go 2 feet in and into some of your challenges or academies?
Yeah, most definitely. So the academy that you mentioned, it's called Better Than Yesterday because we should all be better than we were yesterday, not anyone else.
5% each day.
Exactly. And yeah, so, and that's why, I call it Better Than Yesterday, but because, like you said, if you want to go and do a tester of some sort, I wouldn't recommend that because it's a 6 month program. So it's a lot of commitment. But I do have a challenge coming up, and both of you are invited. It's a 2-week Wēllth Catalyst Challenge. And essentially, we're going to cover movement, we're going to cover nutrition, or we're going to cover habits. And the goal is to help people have a reset, understand, where my baseline is at. And because now the world is starting to open up and we're going back to, and I hate to say the word normal life, but how life was before shit hit the fan. And things are opening up, and especially, in Toronto here. And I find that people are just so much more happy and in tune with themselves because they're now able to have more social interaction. So at least, that component is taken care of. So now they can start taking care of themselves. So we're going to, and what the challenge is essentially is every single morning, we're going to get on 6 a.m. calls. And that call is going to include, setting everyone up for success in the morning for 1 hour. We're going to go over gratitude. We're going to go over the manifestation that I just mentioned earlier. We're going to go over, we're going to have a meditation session together, breathing exercises, and I'm going to ask people, prompting questions to tap into their higher self rather than waking up, bouncing out of bed and shoveling a bunch of things in your bag and grabbing your coffee and booking it out the door. Setting yourself up for success, and hopefully after the 2 weeks, people will maintain that and continue to get into the habit of waking up, having a morning ritual. And another thing that I really emphasize with clients is the evening ritual as well, which it's kind of hard to include that in the evening with people in the challenge, but it's so important what we do before we sleep because it gets carried over into the morning, and what we do in the morning gets carried over into the rest of the day. So that's more of the habit setting component. And with nutrition is a lot of really great recipes, whole foods, fresh foods. And then with the movement component is that I'm going to be giving people options to really maximize their time and effort. When it comes to movement, when it comes to the different types of exercises people want to do, because not everybody wants to lift weights, not everybody wants to do yoga, not everybody wants to run, but
awesome. That sounds like a great place to start with you. And then there's also one-on-one coaching. So are you taking on a minimum number of clients right now, or maximum number of clients, and shifting it to a subscription basis? When is that going to start?
So the membership model is actually called the Wēllth CEO. Wēllth, of course, is Wēllth, and it's going to be a very similar model as the challenge. So we're going to be doing 6 a.m. calls every single day during the week, Monday to Friday. Again, getting people into the zone and encourage people to do something what I call the power hour. So as you mentioned, Jenny, you said that as realtors, you guys are all over the place, and you can schedule this into your own schedule, is block it off. And I don't know how realistic, again, this is for you, but you can always block off an hour or even just 30 minutes into your day and just get shit done. And thank goodness I can swear on your show because I swear a lot. Block into your calendar, and so nobody can bother you. You don't have to deal with other people. Just put your head down, put your phone on silent, and just go to town. because that's when you're the most focused, and that's when you can, get the most done. And it's much easier for you to get into a state of flow. When you get into a state of flow, it's much better, because we literally, and I'm at fault for this too, is sometimes I have, 10 screens open, I'm doing 10 things, and I don't get anything done by the end of the day. Because I'm like, my brain is split into 10 different screens, and we don't function that way. We can't function that way. So focus is something that I always encourage people. So the Power Hour is built into the membership as well. And also monthly meetings, we're going to discuss certain topics during the month. Again, and a lot of that is really helping people to tap into to their higher selves, and so we can ultimately serve humanity. So we don't, stuck in our body, hating our life, and wanting what someone else.
I love your
so good.
Yeah, I love you're very inspiring that. Because a lot of our listeners, they often sign up for more like coaching, where how do you make more calls? How do you be more accountable? How do you get the next deal? So, but they often don't care about themselves, about managing their personal growth and their wellness. So I really appreciate you sharing your time here today, because our listeners are really needing this, especially since I went through it. You went through it.
I'm being honest here. You know that sometimes I bounce back and forth still. I feel like it's getting a bit more stable in terms of not going to that place of survive, you're getting burnt out. And that's been a learned process for me. Being aware of when the energy dips a bit, that's actually my telltale sign. So
yeah, that's great that you're aware, for sure. Yeah. And this is something that I keep telling people is, whether you work for someone else or you work for yourself, is you're your own brand. And how you take care of yourself is, even though you don't go out and say, I don't shower at night, or, I don't take care of myself, people can tell, because we subconsciously vibrate that way. We subconsciously give off that energy of, I'm not completely happy with myself. I'm a little bit burnt out. I'm a little bit, out of it. My battery's running low. Other people can tell. And even though sometimes we're like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm putting on a facade, a front, but people can tell. And that's something that, people can take away and really think about, is the better you are, the better other people are. And it's so selfless for you to take care of yourself, because then you are being, and someone who's inspirational, you can serve your community better. You can be a better, father, mother, friend, partner, whoever it is, because now you show up for other people to the best of your abilities and being authentically you.
Do you have time for our final segment, which is underrated or overrated questions? It's a super fun game.
Of course. I always got time for you guys.
All right. So underrated or overrated. So you just have to say one or the other. You can explain your answer as well.
Okay.
Bucket hats.
Oh, bucket hats. Sorry.
It's the new, the rim, and then there's kind of like, it goes like this, the hat. I don't know if people who are listening on Apple Podcasts won't see my hand signals here, but it's like a bucket and then a rim around it's kind of the
I
new
love
thing.
them. I think they're underrated, but I have a giant head and I don't look good in hats.
Benifer.
Who's Benifer?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, she's not going to know who that is.
What?
That's
Come
so
on.
passe.
Oh, God. This is how old I am. So, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez.
Oh, sorry. I'm not into celebrities. That's why I'm a little bit like what the word would be.
So no comment on that
no
one.
Comment.
No comment. Can I do no comment?
Good that you don't pay attention to that. That's good that you don't put your energy into that.
Yeah.
Cronuts. cronuts.
You know what?
Do you know what cronuts you eat? So probably so healthy. Oh my gosh,
I'm failing at this
questions
game.
are fail.
I'm failing at this game.
Would you eat this then? Put it this way, because you said it's a croissant and
Yes,
a
so
donut
it's
rolled into
Oh,
one, right?
Croissant and a
Terrible.
donut.
I
And
love
you probably would
both.
say no to that.
Really? I was actually in Vancouver in July. I went back to visit my family and I didn't come across any cronuts on the street.
And by the way, next time you come back into town, we would
We
love to
have
have
to
you as a
meet.
guest in person.
Yes.
Shaking hands when you first meet someone.
Overrated. I would prefer a hug.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
TikTok.
I think overrated is sucking souls these days.
They just today they just announced 60 seconds up to now 3-minute videos you can upload.
I'm not a social media person, actually. I don't enjoy it.
Okay.
And I don't normally creep other people. I'm on it for work.
Yeah.
Like seriously, I'm not. It's never resonated with me. I'm there because
That's awesome.
for the brand. But
That's great.
I mean, I've learned a few good things, like how to put a duvet cover on in like less than 1 minute. Fold jeans into my dresser drawer more effectively. So I mean, I
tips.
can embarrassingly say that I have gotten really good tips on it. And my dog is famous on TikTok.
oh, really?
No way.
I didn't know that.
What's the handle? I'll follow it.
Chai_the_burner. And she has like 1.8 million likes or something like
No
that. And
way.
it's like these two really popular posts that has gone global. Holding large attendance weddings. So maybe hosting like a large wedding with a lot of guests. Is that overrated or underrated?
I think overrated. I don't believe in weddings. So I think overrated.
Clubhouse. Yeah, I saw her. She's a member.
I've been trying to get something going, but I think it's underrated underrated. I think it's a great platform for people to get information out there. I don't really know. Like same thing for social media. Like don't get me wrong. I think social media definitely has a lot of really amazing components. I think it's really inspirational if you follow certain accounts, and it's honestly I think showed me how selfless and giving inspirational and empowering how a lot of people are. And of course, you see accounts where you're like, what are you doing here? And then that's when you question humanity a little bit, unfortunately. But I think it's, what you choose to follow, and you just really got to filter what you choose to take in. Again, is that, creation versus reaction.
Mm-hmm. Okay. University and college degrees.
Oh man, this one's hard. I don't know. I don't know. I think there's certain people are designed to learn that way, and I don't regret any of my degrees. And I mean, I have a bachelor's degree and I have a doctorate degree and I have degrees. So. Mm-hmm. But there are people who don't learn that way. But they can learn from the internet. They can watch YouTube and they can learn something amazing. So I think it's, overrated. I think we put too much emphasis on a university degree versus actually testing people's social skills and how much we care about other people and how much we care about what we do rather than like a piece of paper.
Well, Dr. Deanna Rose, it's been a pleasure having you on our show. Final question. How can our listeners find you?
Everything is basically, sorry, I had to think, but everything's basically Deanna, DEANNAW Rose. So my website, my Instagram, my Facebook is Deanna Rose. I do have a Facebook community, is Wēllth Hackers, WELLTH Hackers. That's the Facebook community. And if you are interested in joining the challenge, which both you, Jenny and Tony, are invited, it is the Wēllth Catalyst Challenge that I'll be hosting on July 19th, so in 10 days.
Mm-hmm. I would like to attend.
I see the countdown.
Awesome.
Yeah, I see the
Thank you.
countdown on your
Amazing.
website
I will
right now.
add you guys to the list.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for following us. Yeah, thank you so much for following us and commenting on our post and listening to our podcast. So we look forward to releasing your episode and seeing you in person when you're back in Vancouver.
For sure. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how inspirational you both are.
Thank you.
Beautiful and so inspirational. You guys are doing so many amazing things. So thank you so much for doing what you do. I really appreciate everything you do.
Deanna. We'll talk to you soon.